Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another in my concert review series. I greatly appreciate y'all stopping by, and I would love for you all to subscribe if you haven't already. I am slowly getting into the lower mid 400s. I think like at 411, 412 subscribers. So I would like to kind of hit those points of 450, 500. So once I get to 500, I'll be able to post a little bit more on my community page, and I'd be able to show y'all maybe what I've been listening to and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, another thing, I'm pretty new to Instagram, so if you want to follow me on Instagram, just search up my name and you'll see me on there. No problem. Just look up Sam St. John on Instagram. So, this concert has been one for the books. I've seen other people give comments on the concert. I've seen concert reviews posted. I haven't really watched any up until today. I'm filming this on May 22nd, 2022. So last night, my younger sister and I traveled to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and met up with our good friend Paul McCartney at Truist Field on the campus of Wake Forest University, home of the Demon Deacons. And my sister and I, we saw McCartney, and my youngest sister as well, back in 2015 in Charlottesville at the University of Virginia. He played at John Paul Jones Arena, which is a basketball stadium. It held about, I'd say at that concert there were probably 12,000, maybe 13,000 people there. Well, last night's show, there were, I would say, about 40,000. So it's the largest concert I've ever been to. And so I didn't know what to expect. So, I'm currently still on quite the McCartney high at the moment. And, regardless of, what you might think of McCartney, either his solo work with, Wings, his solo work of the 21st century, Paul McCartney expands a lot more than just his Beatles work, which was very evident last night. Paul McCartney played, I would say, over half the songs. I think there ended up being 21 Beatles songs out of the 36 that the 36 songs that he played. 21 songs were Beatles songs. The rest were either solo or Wings. So my sister and I, we leave my apartment. It takes us about a little over 2 hours to get to that point as the crow flies, and I'll get into the traveling at the end of the video. I was very excited for this concert. I was probably more excited for the last time that I saw him, just because it was the first time that I would ever see McCartney. And frankly, when I finished that show 7 years ago, I thought it'd be the only time I'd ever see him. Well, fast forward 7 years, and I sang along with the songs just like I did 7 years ago. And the only difference is, A, the venue was much larger. B, it was outdoors at a football stadium. And C, our tickets were not quite the same. Our seats were not quite the same. So let's just say we were in row ZZ of the stadium. Now, when we saw him 7 years ago, we were kind of on the side of the stage in the upper nosebleeds, but we were looking down. We were closer to the stage. So like when he did like Live and Let Die, we could feel the heat of the big torches on the stage hit our face. This time it was again row ZZ in a stadium that can normally hold 40,000 people, and the tickets were $30 more. So take that as you will. Not McCartney's fault, but it's because he's paid a flat fee for wherever he goes. But anyway, let's get to the show. We get there and it's already getting packed, and we finally get to our seats after a lot of to do, which again I'll get to at the end. And there were, I don't know, probably about 16 or so rows behind us. So we weren't at the very top, even though we were row ZZ. There were some triple letter rows behind us that would go up like triple A, triple B, triple C. So we were not at the very top, but we were getting there. And we waited, and of course the tickets are set saying, the show starts promptly at 8. The show didn't start till just before 8:30, so it's fine. They want to build up that hype. They're playing, like these remixes of Paul McCartney songs on the sound system. They have 2 large screens over by the stage that kind of have this graphic where it's like this. It starts on like the street view of Paul McCartney's house when he's a little boy. On the video screen, you can see there's a tiny little McCartney in the upper window as a little boy, and then from that point the screens, just as the music's playing, it's just this long. It's like the house is building levels on itself with different images of McCartney throughout his career. Really cool and very catches your eye. And I told my sister, I was like, I said, I bet you just before he comes out, the images will be of him being old. And sure enough, toward the end, it was McCartney as an older man, but still looking great. And again, keep in mind, McCartney's going to be 80 next month, so props to Paul. So the screen gets to this climax, and then you hear that sustaining chord of A Day in the Life, that boom of the piano, and then on the screen is it's like a graphic of Paul McCartney's Hofner bass guitar. And so, the place is like, yeah, this is it right here. And so we're screaming, and then some smoke comes up from the stage, and, the screens go black. And then all of a sudden, from where we see it, a tiny little figure comes out on the stage. And I mean, of course, it's Paul McCartney, but, we're all waiting for like the image to show up on the screen. And the place is just erupting, and then it erupts even louder when it shows up on the screen, and we can see him, in high def on the screen. And he looked great. He really looked great. He came out wearing like a blue corduroy looking blazer with a vest, and his slacks, looking like a proper rock and roller. Long flowing gray hair. Just, it looked great. Came out with the bass. And then, he counts off, and then the band kicks into, Can't Buy Me Love. Goes right into the Help classic. Into the Hard Day's Night classic. And then he goes right into Junior's Farm by Wings, which was just fantastic. It's one of my favorite songs. It's becoming one of my favorite songs. It's not one that I grew up with, but it's one that I've grown to love. And then he jumped into the song Letting Go. Another Wings song. Again, pretty great, 1, 2, 3 there. And then, the show goes on, of course he's singing in no particular order, songs like, Obla Di Obla Da show up, Maybe I'm Amazed shows up, Got to Get You Into My Life. And what was cool about this show from what I'd seen 7 years ago was that he had a horn section with him, which really added a lot. It was a more powerful sound than Wicks, his keyboard player, playing the sounds on his synthesizer. And again, for those of you that know McCartney's band that he currently has, he's had for over 20 years or more, and they kick some tail. They're fantastic. But he's banging out the hits. Obviously, Hey Jude, Let It Be, Blackbird. He does all that stuff. But then he was doing some newer stuff like My Valentine from Kisses on the Bottom. He did For You from Egypt Station. What was the other one he did from Egypt? Sorry, folks. I just want to be sure to get the right thing here. The song, let's see. he did Come On To Me as well, and he also did what's it called? Find My Way from McCartney 3. So sorry about that. So he did some newer stuff. He did a song from New. He did the song New from New. So he's changed up the set list a little bit than other shows. So it hasn't been the same across the board. But I mean, the staples are where they're going to be. You know, you're going to have Blackbird and Here Today back to back in the acoustic section. You know, he's always going to do Lady Madonna. You know, at this point, and he played it on, you know, the psychedelic looking keyboard with the screen on the front with all these images of women throughout history. So some personal notes and some personal favorite moments. Obviously, one of the big ones for everybody is Live and Let Die. Again, last time I saw him, it was an indoor basketball arena, so the fire display was, you know, just the little fire, like the torches, whatever you want to call them, in front of the stage, but they couldn't have fireworks go off inside. Well, this time, obviously, it was outside, so, you know, fireworks shot off from behind the screen and, you know, blasting everywhere. Just killer stuff, and, you know, the smoke is everywhere. He also did, he kind of took us, he called it like he said, let's go through the mists of time or something along those lines. And he starts talking about, you know, the Beatles before Ringo joined. And so he was talking about, you know, the five lads when they were, you know, hanging out in Hamburg and Liverpool. And then he said, you know, this is the first song that we recorded. And so they started playing In Spite of All the Danger, which was a real treat. It was one of my sister's favorite moments of the night. And I'm using her term as, you know, calling it a treat, because it really was. I know he did it on the last tour, but we weren't able to catch that tour. So it was really cool to see it done. And then he started talking about, it's the famous story, you know, of during the Please Please Me sessions, John was playing the harmonica of Love Me Do, and George Martin wanted, you know, them to come in, you know, on the Please Love Me Do, but to have the harmonica going, as we know the song, of course, is impossible to do when John was really singing the lead. So Paul had to take that by himself, and he talks about, you know, how he was so nervous because they were in a proper studio and how his voice trembles, and he said he can still hear his voice tremble on that recording, but he said, you know, not tonight, and so then he breaks into it. But he also did Let 'Em In, which I was not expecting. I know that's kind of a standard for him, but some of those big hits, like, you're like, oh, well, I'm sure he does Silly Love Songs or Uncle Albert. Those are never songs that he plays, Silly Love Songs or Uncle Albert. He always does Let Me Roll It. He always does, you know, Maybe I'm Amazed, that sort of thing. So those were fine, but to me, the big moments were In Spite of All the Danger, and then they broke into Love Me Do, which was killer, with Wicks on the harmonica. And at this point, the band had come, you know, kind of center stage and played kind of more a small scale setup. In terms of emotional moments, the song Band on the Run, for some reason, got to me last night. And another moment was Let It Be, which I know a lot of people get hit with Let It Be. And, you know, it's one of those songs, it's covered a lot and it's done a lot. But when you are there with Paul, and he's 79, almost 80, just a few weeks away, when you're there with him, it's a different experience. And for every reason, Band on the Run, which is not a sad song, or it's not like a ballad, Band on the Run was the one that, like, I started singing it, and then, like, I stopped, like, I couldn't do it, I couldn't sing, and so I just listened to it. And it was really when, you know, the acoustic guitar comes in, the 12 string, and, you know, well, the rain exploded with a mighty crash. I was just like, something hit me where I think I was just thinking, you know, we're not going to have this much longer. You know, Paul and you know, all those guys, Ringo, the Stones, you know, even like guys like Elton John, Billy Joel, whoever you decide, you know, that whoever your favorite is from kind of that era, Springsteen, Dylan, for me, Bob Dylan, you know, we're at these shows, and at the end of the show, Paul's always like, we'll see you next time. But then you start thinking again, like, it's been 7 years since I've seen McCartney, since he's been close enough to me that I would travel to see him. You know, that was probably it. And I was saying, you take people like, let's say, in terms of like a similar fame. I'm not saying talent. I'm not saying songwriting, but takes. I was telling this to my sister today because she stayed with me last night. Because of the late arrival back home, it was about 2:30 that I got back home. Um, I told my sister, I was like, take somebody like Taylor Swift. I said she might have fans who are in their 60s, who are in their 70s, because a lot of these young girls, boys, whoever that have grown up with Taylor Swift, were 14 or 15 when she came on the scene. Their parents are going to be in their 60s, and so like those are the parents that were taking the kids to the concerts. But you go to a Paul McCartney show, and almost everybody that's in that room, with the exception of anybody that's 80 and up, almost everybody in that room was inspired by Paul McCartney for their entire lives. And the fact that he's on stage and doing these songs, I mean, yeah, he's 80. People are going to smash his voice. I thought his voice sounded fantastic last night. I remember during Can't Buy Me Love, he opened up and I was like, man, he sounds good. And I thought that the whole time, like during like In Spite of All the Danger, that was like kind of midway. He sounded great during Let It Be. And I was just like, man, that man has inspired so many people here to start a rock band, to write a song, to, wear a different style of clothing, to, not cut their hair. Just it was just an out of body experience, I think, is what got me. And Hey Jude was the same. Listening to Hey Jude, always very emotional when everybody's singing along. I know he does it every show. Who cares? I don't care. Um, you know, People set up, do their set list and they switch them up, but it's okay. It's okay by me. Um, it was just fantastic. I mean, he did stuff that I never thought I would hear. She came in through the bathroom window and You Never Give Me Your Money. He did the segue from the two. He did Let Him In. He did, Junior's Farm. He did In Spite of All the Danger, Love Me Do. He did Getting Better from Sgt. Pepper, which you don't hear that much. He did for the benefit of Mr. Kite, which he did on the last tour, but he was doing that again. Then again, of course, he always does something for George Harrison on the ukulele. Um, but anyway, it was just a fantastic show. Of course, he ends with the Golden Slumbers medley into the end. Just fantastic. But probably the moment, and I know everybody's been talking about this. I know the video is going long at this point. I don't care. I'm going with it here. To me, the biggest moment was when Paul was talking about the new Peter Jackson Get Back film. And he said, Peter told me, he said, I can isolate John's vocals on the song I've Got a Feeling, and you could sing with him. And Paul was like, well, yeah, I want to do that. So Paul starts into, I've Got a Feeling. And, John doesn't really come into the song until like 3/4 of the way through, just like the recording. But, Paul's like, they're killing it down, 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 down. Well, I got a feeling. And they go into it, and then down, down, and then the screen comes up, and it's John Lennon from the rooftop concert. And, he starts singing, everybody had a hard year, everybody had a good time. And you can hear Paul live on stage going, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then, the last chorus of that song, they come in together. Everybody had a good year. Everybody let their hair down. And then you hear Paul, oh yeah, oh yeah. Everybody saw the sunshine. Oh yeah. That was worth the money. That moment was worth the money because you got to see the Beatles playing together in as close to a form as you're going to get in today's age. I mean, I know Paul and Ringo have come on stage, played drums and everything, but to hear those two voices of Paul and John, singing together, and here's Paul, twice the age of John Lennon when John Lennon passed away. Here's Paul doing his thing. He's selling out 40,000 tickets at a football stadium in North Carolina. It's not like it's, Madison Square Garden. This is just some, college football field in North Carolina. But to hear Paul and John sing I've Got a Feeling together was probably, it could very well have been the greatest concert moment I've ever experienced. Bash it if you will, call it hokey if you will. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was fantastic. So, the tour's about halfway over now. So please, 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 don't break the bank. But even if you get a nosebleed seat like I had, I left I didn't think about that. I was thinking about the music. I was thinking about, the display. The sound was fantastic. The mixing was great. You could hear Paul's bass playing. All the voices were blending together. Just wonderful, wonderful. And as a bonus treat, at the end of the show, I got to say hello to a great friend in the YouTube world, Mr. Beetle Brad. Was at the show, and I got to meet him briefly. Didn't get to talk to him too long, but we both knew that we were going to be there. We had been in some communication, and so he was actually very close to me in our section. So it was very cool to meet him and his wife. So Brad, I'm happy to meet you if you're watching. It was very cool, and I think we're going to talk later on together about the show. So let me get to the negatives. I know I'm going 25 minutes, but I didn't want to rush this one. The negatives, not of the show. I'm not going to talk negative about the show. The show was great. The show was fantastic. 10,000% recommend. This is for the organization of the concert. Okay, so here's the ugly side of the concert world. So again, 2 hours 15 minutes for me and my sister to leave here to go to North Carolina, this part of North Carolina, and we stopped at a place called Dario. It was a kind of like a cookout, steak and shake kind of place, recommended to us by a friend. And according to Google Maps, this place was about 15 minutes from the venue, so it worked out great. So we ate our food, poured down rain outside. We were like, oh great, here we go, pouring down rain. Got the food, ate, had a restroom stop, and then we headed down the road going to downtown Winston-Salem. When I say that it took, so again, Google says 6:15. Google says 15 minutes from this restaurant to the parking lot. So we leave the restaurant about 6:30. We are parked at our spot, which is about 3 blocks from the venue, at 7:43. So a 15-minute trip took over an hour, well over an hour. And I know Brad was stuck in it as well. I wonder if he might talk about it in his review video later. But I was so frustrated. When I say that the organization was pitiful, it was absolutely pitiful. Nobody knew what they were doing. I blame several people. I blame the event coordinators. I blame the folks that operate the venue. I blame you know, those at the traffic stops that weren't doing anything. And it was like everybody, I mean, again, people at the traffic stops, policemen, security, nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody knew what they were doing. We ended up in some neighborhood back road with like a bunch of one-way streets, and cars couldn't get to their homes, just cars that lived in this neighborhood. People were driving in the left lane, and this is the United States. We drive on the right. These are one-lane streets. Well, one way this way, one way this way. People were in the lane just driving along. So I was expecting any minute to see a head-on collision multiple times. My car was stuck in the middle of an intersection. I couldn't move. I had cars to my right, to the left, front, back. I couldn't move. People are honking. It took us so long to get to some spot. It was some business that was offering up parking spaces. I saw a sign that said parking available, $20. We zipped in. I told my sister, I said, we are parking at the next stop. So we pulled in, paid the lady $20, finally got to the spot. Nervous wreck. The show was supposed to start at 8 o'clock promptly. We still haven't gone through security. My sister has a small fanny pack that she has to have monitored, and we can see the line of people is just wrapped around. Luckily, we're kind of like booking our way around the lines because people are just standing still because they feel the need to stand still. They weren't really stopping people. It was just because people are creatures of habit. They weren't walking around everything else. I don't do that. I was walking around it. I said, come on, let's go. So we were walking. People were like waiting in line, but there was no line. They were just standing there because everybody else was. We get around all these people, get into the venue. I'm trying to pull up the tickets on Ticketmaster. There's no service. I'm trying to pull it up. Finally, I was able to get them up. We get to the baggage center, the bag scan. They have these, massive metal detectors that 10 people could walk through. Did that. Finally got inside the venue. We've been driving, all this time, and we just used the bathroom at the restaurant. But you want to try before you sit up in a nosebleed section for 3 hours. So, I mean, people were shoulder to shoulder. People were going this way, that way. The line for the ladies' room was up against the wall. The men's room was the same. Plus, you had everything smushed in that same area. So you had all of the food trucks. You had merch. You had the people that were like VIP on the lawn, like trying to get into like spots there. There were people that were. There was a lady who was carrying like ballpark nachos like over her head, walking through the stream of people. I told Maggie, I said this is the. I said I was like, this is the worst organization I've ever seen at a concert. I said ever, and I've been to 45, 50 concerts. It was the worst in terms of organization that I've ever been to. So Wake Forest, if you're watching, you need to do better on the next big show. And you would think because they have football games there, that they would be able to manage this event. No, they did very poorly on that. So it was bad, and it was bad. I know Brad was stuck in it. I was nervous wreck driving back home because we didn't get in the car and leave till 11:45. So I was home at about 2:30 last night, Saturday night, depending on when I post this. It was something special. The organization was terrible, but Paul McCartney was great. Back to the truths, and Paul McCartney was great. Band was cracking. They were killing it. Great audience. People around me were great, with the exception of a couple of people that were lying about what seats they were in, but I'm not even going to get into that. Anyway, 30 minutes. Here we go. If anybody's still there, I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, go Paul McCartney. Live and let die. All that good stuff. Y'all be good.